what I intend to speak here is what I have learned in the last 30 years in being part of the regulatory organization. Unlike many of the previous speakers, I belong to what I call as an aboriginal regulator, because we were essentially born and brought up as part of this organization long back, some 30 years back. So sitting on the sidelines, seeing the regulatory decision making, how the processes were being done, what I intend to do is recall those experiences from a little higher level perspective, looking at some part of this three-stage program, how we went about doing the reviews and regulatory decision making, and from there trying to find some possible answers to how we prepare for the next phase of the renaissance of the program. So having said that, let me straight away, I don't have an outline, I am straight away jumping into the presentation. You see, as many of the previous speakers have pointed out, this regulatory system has undergone development concurrently with the growth of the technology and the program in India, which is, we are one of the regulatory unique ones. There are few countries who have gone through a similar stage of development. So when we look at, we are also sticking to the similar lines of growth in our country also. The advantage of this kind of a program was that it was able to cope with the needs of whatever the program was demanding. When we look at the essential elements of regulations, the three higher level things are: one is have a sound set of requirements for regulation or safety criteria or regulatory criteria. The second one is having a sound set of processes which also address the elements like transparency, so that yesterday we talked a lot about building trust. Apart from transparency, there is also a requirement of visibility, because credibility of the regulator depends on its visibility. So that's in a nutshell, that explains. Then, as yesterday Bhardwaj Saab pointed out, the main resource of a knowledge-based organization is the human resource and the competence. How do we manage it? So I have some thoughts in these areas when we are looking at the future requirements. The safety requirements and criteria for most part of the NPP life cycle has been in place in the last 40 years of our existence. It has not come overnight. It was developed over a period of time as we gathered our experience. And as on date, we have a set of requirements for most of the designs which we are dealing with. And as we have mentioned earlier in the talks, these regulations were essentially developed taking account of the scientific principles and safety issues, and that were followed as which form the basis of the technology as well as the regulations. As we can proudly say that our requirements for safety today are in line with the international benchmark, at par with that, and as a minimum it takes account of the relevant IAEA safety standards. As an international benchmark, one of the element every regulator is expected to take into account is the views of the stakeholders, because finally these requirements are in place for them to comply with. And if there are issues in, there is no point in having a requirement which cannot be implemented. So it's a lot of importance that views of the stakeholders is taken in the development of the regulatory requirements, the development process of those requirements as well as guidance. In the last decade or so, we have taken the step of obtaining views of the public in finalizing the regulatory requirements, particularly. Towards the final stage of the development process, the draft documents are presented to the public for comments. So far the response has not been that great, but there have been few, and the encouraging part is that the points given to us are, we are able to handle it without much of a difficulty, the views from the public. I think going along, I think we will get this program a little more intensive, and we should be able to engage more with respect to the comments from the public in these regulatory requirement documents. The advantage of whatever process we have is that the concurrent development, it helps us that it is not that you impose a requirement and then ask the utilities to follow that. Instead, when we are getting into a first of a kind area, we try out. Some safety criteria are developed based on the scientific principles, and then try it out, take the review process forward, and then take that experience in order to finalize the regulatory requirement documents. So that has been the practice which I have been following in the last 30 to 40 years. And this has worked well, and the advantage we get is, when we actually get into the development of a regulatory requirement document, we find that the issues in implementation are minimal. We are able to address the safety challenges well. And their relevance is very good, as well as they are of the required rigor. In the areas where we do not have safety documents or requirements, our own requirements, it is the process provides for following the international standards, as a minimum the IAES standards, so that we are able to go ahead with the regulatory decision making. The current set of requirements, what we have established, actually covers most part of the life cycle of the NPPs, from siting till the last stage, that is about waste management, which also covers some part of, good part of decommissioning, which we can say that the refurbishment of the NPPs, which PHWR is part, sort of a part decommissioning operation as well. The large part of the life cycle actually is operation, and the operational safety reviews become a major part of the activity of the regulatory body. The life cycle, we are talking about the life of the NPPs for 60 years or 40 years plus additional period. Generally nowadays 60 years is a reasonable period for life of an NPP, operating life. All these requirements are essentially tuned for the indigenous technology, and that said, our regulations have a strong influence by the technology we developed and the entity we are regulating. This point was made repeatedly in yesterday's discussions, and I think we will continue to hear this as we go along. As I mentioned, the human resource form the essential resource of this organization, and we place a significant emphasis on enhancing the technical and regulatory competence of the personnel. The HR approaches which we follow aims that most of the competence requirements for implementing the regulatory processes for the currently established technologies should be available in-house. It doesn't mean that we do not have features where we can tap the available expertise from other organizations. In fact, when we deal with many complex safety and technological issues, this is an important support which we require. The one advantage we had when we are talking about the concurrent development is the involvement of the accomplished experts in our safety review processes. And this has helped us, our people, to have a mindset where we actually get into the finer details of the technology we are dealing with. I think thanks to the eminent experts who actually functioned as mentors for the young staff of the regulatory body. I think AERB will always be indebted to the larger DAE family for facilitating that. Actually, it is these experts have mentored a big part of the expert manpower which we have today. As I mentioned, the safety review during operational phase forms a bulk of this activity because we are required to maintain for this long life cycle of the NPP that the original basis on which the plants were licensed. It is maintained at the same level of rigor throughout the lifetime of the plant. There's this many times the 60 years if you take, this exceeds the full service life or life cycle of individuals who are experts. So the preserving the knowledge throughout the lifetime, the rigors of documentation, all those things are captured when I make that statement. So if you look at the safety reviews required during operational life, it deals with a number of factors. It's all well established as part of the management system of the NPP when it is initially licensed, because the basis for licensing is that the plant is designed in accordance with the safety requirements and it is constructed following as per the approved design, following the stipulated quality standards, and then it is commissioned and validated to prove that the plant actually meets the design requirements, and then it goes into operation. One prerequisite for before it goes into operation is that establishment of a number of management systems, which again is stipulated in the requirements of AERB. So, in order to ensure that the requirements are followed throughout the life cycle, we have the enforcement. We have a system for verification of compliance throughout the lifetime, and if we find any deviations, there are tools of enforcement that it can vary from issuing directive, which looks benign, but it can be a little tough, and ranged up to restrictive actions, including curtailment or putting restrictions on the operation or other activities, whatever is permitted. So that's part of the regulatory system. It is there for all regulators. And the real teeth of the regulation comes from the powers which we can exercise for enforcement. The fear of the regulator, or the respect for the regulator, comes essentially from this. One important feature of the operational safety review and the licensing regime is the conduct of the periodic safety review. Today, most of the regulators in the world over follow this approach that once in a specified periodicity we revisit the entire design requirements and safety standards, whether we are still in compliance to the current requirements. In fact, when we look at historically, India has been one of the early entrants. In fact, it was the first entrant to introduce this system way back in, as early as 1993 is what I first recall. But it was not very well formalized. The formalized system came into existence in the year 2000. Essentially what it does is, there are guidance available how this is to be conducted. Actually, this is a review which, very, very comprehensive one, which will have to be done by the licensee, and then they have to develop a set of documentation addressing a set of parameters. There are 14 safety factors are to be addressed, and then present that. What it does is, it actually, I mentioned that 60 years is the lifetime, and the safety standards do not remain static through this period. The technologies advance, experience get accumulated, and all these aspects get factored as advances or changes in the safety standards which we follow. So, a planned license today which is considered as safe, it may not continue to remain the same level of safety expectations, say 15 years down the line or 20 years down the line. But the societal expectation is that the safety is maintained at the similar levels. So there has been always a debate that what is good? It is maintaining safety or enhancing safety. So the periodic safety review process is something which tries to address that. Perhaps if we look at our experience base, we today have the largest experience base with respect to implementation of the PSR process. And essentially this is done to identify the need for enhancement, safety enhancement, how it is to be identified and how they are to be implemented. Because what we call as in the post-Fukushima regime, where we have the Vienna Declaration on Nuclear Safety, one of the elements is that we have an international commitment that all nuclear power plants will be going through a regular and periodic review of the design itself, and so that the safety enhancements required can be identified and implemented timely. So this is one of the commitments which we have made after the Fukushima accidents. So the experience we had of conduct of this periodic safety review has been very handy, and we could very confidently commit that yes, we will be able to do. In fact, this is one area where today many of the nuclear utilities and the regulators are struggling, that what are the best practices with respect to identification and implementation of practicable safety improvements after they are licensed during the operational lifetime. So in our case, the essential element of periodic safety review is that it is compared against the current requirements and practices. So this gives an opportunity for identification and implementation of safety improvements. And in order to add a little force to it, we have linked the renewal of authorization of the nuclear power plant, which is done once in 5 years in our case as of now. We will have some alterations to the system, but the feature of linking it to a periodic safety review process is likely to continue. I think that's a good feature of the system which we are following, and it is likely to continue. The experience gained from the PSR in terms of looking at the current safety practices and what are the safety gaps which we are identifying, and actually that feedback is also used for two things. One is when we do a periodic safety review of one plant, it is the experience utilized plants of similar nature, other plants also. And second thing is the inputs also go into the enhancement of the standards themselves. So there is a feedback within the feedback loop existing. So all the NPPs in India, operating NPPs, have undergone the periodic safety review which since it has started in 2000. And the other feature of the program is the operating experience feedback. It's a very robust OEF program. And because as I recall one statement made by Mr. J.R. Srinivasan way back in 2000, lessons learned is what we call the wisdom. It is directly proportional to the number of equipments which are damaged. But his question was, should it be our own equipment, or can we learn from the experience or the mistakes made by others? So this, the thought has gone very much into the operating experience feedback program. So we have implemented it, and it's a strong program which we have. And this is used for making safety improvement, learning from others' experience, and then using it to enhance our own safety. A number of examples are there. One in particular I would recall is when we had these discussions in the backdrop of the Fukushima accident. We had a tsunami 7 years before Fukushima in the Madras atomic power plant, and a number of safety enhancements in terms of hardware as well as in the processes were made. I think these people did not really learn, because we learn from other experiences, or similarly we share our experience to the international community. Perhaps they have not utilized that experience to take lessons in the Fukushima case also. This was one of the thought which was expressed when we were getting into the discussions on the post-Fukushima. Then there is another element of our safety review program, that is the special reviews. I would say there are many examples, right, from subsequent to the TMI, the Chernobyl, the Narora fire, and that last is the Fukushima accident itself. And these have given a number of, facilitated us to make a number of safety enhancement in the NPPs. In fact, when we were reviewing the safety of Indian NPPs after the Fukushima, one statement made is that the regulatory processes and the enhancement made in our NPPs have actually given a very high level of robustness with respect to how they can cope with the external hazards exceeding their original design basis. I think the credit for that goes into this very robust regulatory framework which we have, which identified the merit of this safety enhancement implementation program. Now coming back to the 3-stage program, that is the topic of my talk actually. It's a very high level overview. I don't want to get into the details. The codes on site evaluation and operation. These requirements are going to be universally applicable, and I think they remain valid for the entire operational, entire technologies. And these two, particularly after the siting requirements underwent the, they have acquired the lessons from the Fukushima Daiichi accident, and they are currently, of the international standards today. And I think they are going to continue to remain, it will remain valid for all cycles. Coming to codes on design, we had issued, again, we were one of the first to issue the requirement for, design requirement for the LWR based NPPs right, way back in 2015. It was one of the first entrants. We could sort out the issues in development, and I think most of the requirements specified in that document, most of them are applicable across the designs. They are mostly generic. There are few design specific requirements. Barring that, rest is applicable to all designs. And in the following the similar lines, we have also taken up updating of the design codes for PHWR based NPPs, as well as the sodium cooled fast reactor based NPPs. So, before, which form part of the second phase of NPP, the program. And before the SFR, the current SFR document was made ready, the basis for the review, design as well as design safety review formed of the PFBR safety criteria document, which was issued way back in 1989. And that was subsequently updated in 2015, which was identified as the basis for the FBR design as well as safety review. Now, today, with the SFR code, which is likely to be ready in some foreseeable time, I think this will form the basis for review of the fast breeder reactors. And for the next stage, I think the wisdom says that it is going to be we will have to depend on the concurrent review method, which has worked well for us. And I think we will have a strong reliance on that approach. Now today, when we look at the future scenario, we are poised for significant expansion, multiple designs, and which is a challenging one. One area of capacity building is in the development of regulatory requirement and guidance documents, which, as I mentioned, most of it is already in place. Care has been given in development of the particular design requirement that we keep the technology specific to a very small part of the document. Generally, the requirements can be applied across the designs. So, the FOAK systems, nowadays so many innovative designs come, and it poses a special challenge, because the first layer of defense in depth requires that use of proven technologies with adequate experience backup. The FOAK systems and equipment will have this as a limitation. So we will have to come up with some innovative method of how they are reviewed and qualified. So this element was one of the challenging aspects when we were looking at the Kudamkulam designs, which is imported. So we have a reasonable approach wherein it's kind of some sort of mix of experimentation and on prototype and analysis will have to be depended on for the basis of acceptance, and then subsequently detailed testing during commissioning to the extent feasible, so that if we come across any issues, we will have to take action to correct that the issues. So this is, so far it has worked well. I think we will undergo refinements further. I think it will work well. The future scenario continued. The Regulatory reviews of new reactor technology where AERB has not stipulated its own standards. It could be following the relevant IAEA or other international safety standards, and as developing comprehensive regulatory safety documents indigenously would require some time as well as experience in the relevant technology. For the first-hand experience gained from the reviews based on international safety standards would provide crucial inputs for developing the regulatory, robust regulatory standards for us. The approach for the construction and commissioning phase of PFBR, with the experience of regulation of NPPs so far, there is confidence that the approach of thank you. The important areas of development of and maintenance of competence and the concurrent development of the regulations with the technology, which I think we have already done with that. The other areas which will the commissioning guidance also is under development, which we had a earlier document in a draft document. Now we are in the process of finalizing that. So this approach will provide us sufficient resilience to handle the challenges for the subsequent phases of the nuclear program, including adoption of advanced technologies. Now, this is not related to the three-phase program, but when we talk of renaissance, one issue yesterday also was discussed quite extensively. That is the issue of multiple entities, new entities coming into the nuclear operations. The current requirements and practices, again, again I am repeating that these are significantly influenced by the entity which we have been regulating. Their safety culture, the similar DNA which we possess, because invariably what we have seen is that when there are substantive issues of safety, the areas of difference in perception between the regulatory side and the utility side has been very minimal. And this has been an extremely helpful situation when it comes to implementation of regulations without any coercive requirements. So that, I think, we need to see how it processes, and will be a challenging area when we deal with new entities who may not have the similar safety perspective. So we need to find solutions. There are many options under consideration, and this will impact definitely on the requirements and guidance documents. We have some kind of decent understanding of where all we need to change. Yesterday, Bharadwaj Saab's presentation also mentioned about HOF, and those requirements will be reflected in the requirement documents on leadership and management for safety, which earlier used to be known as the quality assurance, and the related processes, how the safety policies, their safety management systems are put in place. We will have to think of more formal requirements in that area. So this, as the Chairman AERB mentioned in his address in the morning, this is one of the subjects which we are dealing with as part of our ongoing Manthan process. The suggestions discussed during this conference yesterday, today also there will be some issue, because we have some discussion on safety culture later in the day. I think those will also receive consideration when we are finalizing this aspect. Now, see, there is a big, we have a great expectation from the current licensees. They have a tremendous maturity, experience, and they can work as the best examples or gold standard when it comes to how the conduct of a licensee should be. So this expectation is there. And while mentioning that, I am compelled to recall a safety directive issued by Homi Jahangir Bhabha, the architect of this department, way back in 60s. That the excerpts from that the radioactive material and sources of radiation should be handled in the atomic energy establishment in a manner which not only ensures that no harm can come to the workers in the establishment or anyone else, but also in an exemplary manner, so as to set a standard which other organizations in the country could be asked to emulate. I think this would be the bottom line and guidance for all of us to go forward in this direction. With that, thank you all for patient listening.